Have you ever wondered about the silent struggles many children face behind closed doors? Did you know that child abuse comes in various forms, often hiding in plain sight? What does it take to break the silence surrounding child abuse? How can breaking this silence become a powerful catalyst for change in creating a safer environment for our children? How can we as a society empower survivors to share their stories and amplify their voices to empower advocates and inspire a collective movement against abuse? Join me after the intro for a conversation with a very special friend with whom we will answer this and many more questions. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's start. Hi, I'm Rossana D, and this is Forgive and Thrive, a podcast where we explore what thriving in life means and how we can achieve it, irrespective of our past, current condition, and expectations that those around us or society in general may have. Let's go. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. Child abuse takes on various forms, from the visible wounds of physical harm to the silent yet profound scars of emotional and sexual abuse. It extends beyond the acts themselves, permeating the very fabric of a child's development, leaving imprints on their mental, emotional, and physical well-being that extend far beyond their childhood and often affects many aspects of their adult life. The prevalence of this issue is staggering, cutting across cultural, socio-economical, and geographical boundaries, making it a pervasive concern that requires our immediate and sustained attention. So today we want not just to shine a light on the darkness of child abuse, but unravel the layers, understand the complexities, and foster a collective commitment to change by challenging the prevailing silence and building a foundation for a world where every child is not just free from harm, but is given the nurturing environment they need to thrive. And we dive into this very important topic in a conversation with today's guest, Regina LaFrance. Regina has come a long way since her native homeland, a small village in the Azores in Portugal, a place she called home until tragedy struck. Drawing from her direct experience, her semi-autobiographical novel, Shayla, is a depiction of the events that happened when she was violently raped as a young girl by a pedophile priest in her village. Her tell-all book further speaks to the deep-seated wounds and the trauma that have followed into her adult life, as striving to reinvent herself and find healing. Shayla is Regina's sharing an ultimate hope for others who have been molested and suffered from abuse. Passionate in the resolve of this issue, she has made it her ongoing effort to prevent the unthinkable from happening to more innocent children. Hi, Regina. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Rossana. Thank you.
Well, Regina, first of all, it's a very important topic. And as we were just mentioning before starting, it's something that I feel very passionate about because it's a story that I share. I was molested as a child. And if it's okay with you, I would like to start with you and your experience.
Yes. So when I was very young, growing up on an island in a farm, I was very happy. I had a wonderful childhood with my parents and my sister. Everything was beautiful and pure and fun and safe. And those are the memories that I hold on to now in regards to my parents, because for 50 years, from the age of 10 all the way to the age of 50, I didn't have the ability to hold on to those memories. They existed, but they really didn't mean much. Because unfortunately, because of the abuse that I suffered when I started when I was 9 years old into 10 years old, paralyzed me for 50 years. And it wasn't until recently, after I started writing my book and after I completed my book, and the love that I have received from other victims and so many people that are very supportive, that I realized that the little girl from 6 years old to 9 years old, it still lives inside. So those are the things that I hold on to now, those memories. But when I was 9 years old, the village priest had the opportunity to be alone with me several times. And he began to touch my leg and then grab my leg. And then the next time it would be more up in the upper thigh. And then he would pull me towards him and hold me close to him. And then from there, it was gradually on to exposing himself to me and bringing my hand to touch him, and to the point where I always ran away from him every time I could. And I never really accepted it or let him know that I trusted him. So it was almost like, to me, now looking back, he made a point to um, get me alone in a place where I could not escape. And I was paralyzed physically, really, the night that he attacked me sexually and physically badly. I was only 10 years old, and I was hurt. I was really badly hurt. And from that point on, I was paralyzed with fear. Not fear that it would happen again, but fear of being shamed, fear of felt dirty and worthless, and fear of not trusting anybody. So for during my teenage years, I rebelled against everyone, including my parents, that did not know what to do with me. They tried everything. They knew what to do. They even went to the priest and asked for help on what to do with a teenage daughter that was just so rebellious. And my father, especially, was very, very disappointed that as a teenager, I just didn't obey the rules anymore. I didn't want to go to church, stay up late, stay out late. And he was so disappointed and so heartbroken that he could not bring himself to talk to me or have a relationship with me. And when I was 18, I found a way to move to the United States. So I left home when I was 18 and I never looked back. And all my years in the United States, I made friends and I had relationships and I had jobs and I had a good life. But inside my head, it was always chaos. I never trusted that I had the energy or the knowledge or the power or the self-esteem to go ahead and be free. I was always feeling trapped inside. I always felt bad. I always wanted to do different things, but I felt bad. I never had the courage to go ahead and do anything I wanted to do. Always felt paralyzed. I had many jobs, and some jobs I had were very good jobs, but the second something went wrong or I didn't like something, I immediately assumed people didn't like me. Immediately assumed that I was not good enough or that I was not accepted. And I just lived my life like that for a long, long time. I met my husband, my current husband, in 2010, and we had a very good relationship, but there was always something. He didn't know what it was, and it's just the way I was. If something didn't go my way or if something didn't work out, I would just move on. But with him, it was different. I stuck it out. And it wasn't until I started writing my book that I started feeling more confident and worthy of love. And I had a really serious talk with myself. And I said, okay, let's write down everything that has happened from the time I was 20, 30, 40 years old. Things that I remember that I didn't like. And let's find out what the common denominator was here. Because if I'm going about my life and I have, like I said, the jobs and relationships and different places that I lived, and everything just never works out, let's find out what happens here. And it was sad, but yet rejuvenating to see that the common denominator was here. It was me. I never stayed long enough to figure out a problem. I would either be defensive or I would just leave. And once I realized that I was the problem, I wanted to fix myself and I wanted to look in the mirror and say, self, you can do this. You just have to change your way of thinking and how you feel about yourself. And a lot of people have told me over the years that I was smart, that I was beautiful, that I was energetic, that I had courage. A lot of people told me all that all the time, but I never told me that. I always felt worthless and not worthy of love. And once I started looking in the mirror and identifying all these different situations that clearly were my fault, I began to take baby steps toward healing. And the first thing that I had to do was nurture the inner child. Go back and say, child, it was not your fault. And that was the hardest part.
And well, first of all, I'm really sorry that you had to go through that experience. As I mentioned before, no child really should go through that experience. And I understand what you are saying because I experienced exactly the same. It started in my case when I was 10. And there are so many similar situations that I could relate to your story. And if you don't mind, I would like to sort of unpack them, starting from the experience or how this experience affected your adult life, because we think of child abuse as something that sometimes is limited to that period in life, but as you said, it doesn't. It keeps going. And I always say, in my case, for example, I was molested between 10 and 13, but then I continued abusing on myself from 13 onwards.
Yes.
So can you take us more in detail of what it meant being adult and dealing with that experience, perhaps in silence, and that sense of shame that comes with that? And unfortunately, most victims feel ashamed because society tells us a lot of things, but don't tell us this is not your fault, as you said.
Right. So looking in the mirror and asking why me. But then I talk to a lot of people that were abused, and I know some people that were being abused at the same time I was. So it wasn't just me, but the predators and the abusers, they tell you that you're ugly or that if you tell anybody, they're not going to believe you because you're no good. Because if you were good, you wouldn't be picked. And then you just believe it. You go into places and you immediately hide in a corner. Or if someone disrespects you, you accept it and you allow it because that's how you feel about yourself. And that's the saddest part of being an adult that didn't recognize all of this at a younger age. To allow disrespect for 50 years or to allow other abusive relationships. And it doesn't have to be physical or sexual, it could be emotional. You in a relationship and you allow someone, and it doesn't have to be a spouse, it could be a supervisor, or it could be a mother-in-law, or it could be your own parents. I know a lot of people that have parents that are hypocrites and just speak badly of either their daughter or their son. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a relationship, it could be anyone. And a lot of times in the workplace, women, they put up with a lot of different things because they accept, because that's what they believe they deserve. And what I've learned in the last couple of years doing my own research and writing is you can say just about anything you need to say to someone when it comes from a sincere place in your heart. You can say anything. If someone says something to you that you don't like, it's okay to say, no, I don't agree, or I'm going to do it this way, or no, I'm not going to go over today, or no, I don't want to do that today. It's okay to say that because when you say it with confidence and in a humble place in your heart, the other person most likely will understand. But like in my case, I was always trying to help everyone or never say no because I wanted to be loved and I wanted people to like me. And I lived my adult life in a state of depression and in a state of sadness because I wasn't living it the way I wanted. And the changes were easy to make because I never really wanted to live my life anyway much more different, just to have my own ideas and to have confidence. And now everything is so much better because I am more balanced within my mind. People around me, I look back now and a lot of people around me really loved me and cared for me, but I didn't allow them because I didn't love myself or had respect for myself.
Mm.
So,
It's that sense of worthlessness, I guess, that the abuse brings with it, and
yes,
broken trust, especially when it happens in childhood, because I would argue that a lot of child abusers are not strangers to the
right.
child. Are
That's
family
right.
members, are friends, family friends, educators, people with responsibility roles. So there is a level of trust that the child has in those people. And when that trust is broken, obviously the consequences are very, very important.
Yes.
I would argue that it should be the role of adults to protect children and perhaps pick up signs of what is happening, that something is not right. First, what do you think about it? And what were the signs in your case that perhaps could have suggested that something wasn't right, that something was happening?
Yes. So for me, what I believe is that a child is born perfect. And a child is carefree to play, to speak their minds, to do the things that they like to do. So when a child cries that they don't want to go somewhere or that they don't like to do something, we need to pay attention. And for me, and I believe in 2015, it I had a flashback because one of my clients told me their daughter did not want to go to summer camp that year. And she asked the child why, and and what was going on in her mind. And she said, Mommy, I don't want to go this year. Please don't make me go. And that immediately brought a flashback of when I didn't want to go to music lessons. I did not want to sing in a choir. And I asked my mother so many times. I pleaded with my mother not to go. And she said that I had to go because my father was very proud of me learning to play an instrument and that he loved seeing me sing in a choir. And I just didn't want to go. And she told me that she didn't want to hear another word about it, that I had to go. It was important for me to go. And she wanted me to stay busy and have an activity to do. And she said she would love to see me play an instrument. The main reason to write my book was to create awareness. If a child is showing signs of distress, we have to pay attention. Children love to go places. They don't even care who they go with as long as they're having fun or they're going somewhere. Children are so carefree and so happy to learn something and to go do something. And if that child says, Mommy, please don't make me go, that child is letting you know that something is wrong. And they don't have communication skills. If their abuser is telling them, if you tell anybody, I'm going to hurt your family, or I'm going to do it again and again. Like in my case, I wanted to be a good girl for my father. He always encouraged me to be a good girl, and we would do a lot of activities out working in the farm. And he always told me to behave myself and do what the adults told me to do and to always be a good girl. And that was my main focus. And the priest knew that. And a lot of times my father would ask him in front of me if I was a good girl. I'd practice. And the priest always said I was an excellent little girl. And then he told me that if I didn't do what he wanted, I was not being a good girl. And that he would tell my father that I wasn't a good girl. So speaking to my parents about what was going on was not an option. But my signs and my subconscious mind told my body to do things. And these things would be hang on to my mother's skirt and tell her I don't want to go and cry, hanging on to my mother's leg. But she believed it was the best thing for me. And she thought I just wanted to stay home to play or to not be bothered with learning something. So my creating awareness desire is that if you're an educator or a parent or whoever you are in charge of raising a child, just pay attention. The child is not going to speak words. The child might even be too young to speak. Pay attention why they don't want to do something.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, silence is probably the worst sign when an abuse happens, because it's sort of intertwined with the sense of shame. As a child, you don't understand abuse. I know that I didn't understand about abuse. I learned what abuse was with time, but as I learned it, I
Yes.
developed that sense of shame, and that sense of shame keeps you in the dark and with
Yes.
talking. So I really appreciate what you are saying. Absolutely. Talking about writing this book, and obviously you already mentioned what was the main reason for that, to create awareness, and I really applaud you for that, because I assume that it's not very easy. It's certainly not the most traveled path. What does sharing brought to you in terms of your personal experience, in terms of your healing, for example?
For me, was letting it all out. And even when I was writing it, I spent many times in this room right here writing my book, and I cried a lot as I was writing it. And even with my own husband, I could not share with him some of the pieces of the book because I didn't want him to feel bad for me. The shame was still there. I didn't want him to think that I was dirty, if that makes any sense. But my culture, that word doesn't mean dirty with dirt. It's dirty, like you're no good.
Damaged.
Yes, and I didn't want him to feel that way, but it was me that didn't want him to feel that way. He did not feel that way. He has compassion and he's very caring, but I didn't want him to know. But once I wrote it and was all on paper, it was out. I immediately felt that release of emotion, and the secret was out, and I didn't own it anymore, and the burden of keeping it didn't belong anymore. And I started to feel at ease sharing it. But even in the beginning, I didn't want to share the whole thing. Or I thought that maybe I'd write the book about it was a dream I had, or it was a little girl that lived in the island. But once people started saying, "Oh, that's you, isn't it? You're Sheila," and I started feeling more confident about letting it all out and letting it go. And that's when I started believing that a child is never at fault. You cannot carry on for 50 years something that someone else did 50 years ago. You have to let go of that burden, carry on that pain.
You
That's
mentioned these cultural factors. You said, I come from a culture where these things are not discussed. These things are, you are damaged goods, basically, almost.
yes.
And I can relate to that as well. But I would also argue that it's really society that puts that idea down. So how can we sort of challenge these societal norms to encourage an open conversation on these topics? Because until we start talking about it in really openly and really addressing the good, the bad, and the ugly of the situation, provided that there is some good about it, we will never really address, right? We will always keep a layer, we will always keep it in the dark, where more abuse can actually develop.
Yeah, so I would say people our generation, I'm not going to just say women because a lot of men are also abused. We just don't hear about it as much.
Absolutely.
But for people in general, our generation older or close to our age, or my age, nobody ever talked about anything. The family didn't want to be shamed, and they didn't have the confidence to bring it to the law. Because back then, I guess there was no such thing as bringing it to the law, I guess. I don't know. No one ever talked about it. I remember being a young child and knowing that this priest had done other things to other people later on in life, not at 10 years old, but later on in life. In 2016, I connected with a woman that had been his sex slave prior to me. She moved to the United States, and in the book, her name is Juliet. And Juliet and Shayla, they connect and they go on the road trip, and they talk freely to each other about what he did. Now, I think parents and educators are more open about bringing these situations to the surface and have these predators being accounted for. But I still believe that even now, parents or people in charge of raising children, I still believe that sometimes they don't believe that because they cannot believe that a person would do that to their little sweet child. Or they say, oh, the child heard that that other child was abused, so now they're going to say the same thing and they're going to say they're abused. I've heard of cases like that. Oh, she's just saying that because her friend was abused. How do you know for real? And a lot of times parents are working, they bring the child to child care. There's always an older brother, not the child's brother, but let's say the daycare provider. They have an older son or they have a boyfriend or they have the next door neighbor. I don't know. There's always somebody that comes creeping around when there is children, and they take a young girl and say, "Oh, sit right here on my lap. Let me tell you a story." Uh-uh. My child, I don't have any, but if I did, they're not sitting on anybody's lap. There's always something. If your child tells you that they don't want to go somewhere, there's always a reason. And it's probably not because that child was having a good time. It's probably because that child was being molested somehow.
What would you say can be done in schools, for example, in churches and childcare, in all these situations to bring abuse prevention, for example, and to make sure that really is a safe environment for the child?
I could say enforce the law for abuses, or make it tough so abusers don't get out of jail. Throw them, put them away, throw away the key. I could say all those things, but there will always be people that will most likely never be caught. So the law is good, and we could possibly enforce the law more. But the main thing that I would say is for all people that are in charge of having a child nearby, open your eyes and know what's going around your child, know what your child is exposed to. And that's it, because there's really no other way. We just have to create awareness. And the thing is too, you cannot be overprotective, because now you're going to paralyze your child with fear. You can't speak with strangers. You definitely don't go in the car with a stranger. You never go near a stranger. We have to educate our child to be social, but be very aware of the signs. And the same goes to teenage girls, because teenage girls could be suffering from depression. They might want attention. They might be from a single parent house where they're missing the father figure or the mother figure. They might even be brought up by their grandparents, and now they miss their mom and dad, and they wonder why. I am brought up by my grandparents, what's wrong with me that I don't have a mom and dad? And those teenage girls, they are going to look for attention now with cell phones and social media and so many different things that I don't even know that that they know. They have ways to get attention. And if a teenage girl starts to get attention in the wrong places, they are going to be headed in the direction where they're going to have low self-esteem. They're going to think it's okay to be disrespected, because when you seek attention in the wrong places, most likely is by adults that are older and should know better. So I would say, if I was raising a child or raising children right now, I would be involved in their activities. I would be making sure that they're playing sports, that they are focused, that they enjoy their schoolwork. Because when your child doesn't want to do schoolwork, doesn't enjoy it, it's probably not because they're lazy. It's probably because they have other things happening that are not giving them that clear vision of what schoolwork should be. There's a lot of bullying in schools. That could be happening there too. So if you bullied in school, your self-esteem is going to go down. And now what? Now you're going to seek attention other places. What are we doing as adults that could turn into overeaters, undereaters? It's just a number of things. They can cut themselves. They can run away. They can do drugs. So many things that young girls do now because they need to fill that void. And that void is there because something happened at a young age. Probably because the person in charge of raising them didn't have the knowledge to provide that child with everything that child needed for success and to be free to live as a child and a young adult. Because you see a young girl, let's say 13 years old, that is focused in playing sports. She has great grades in school. She's focused and she is balanced. And then you see the teenage girl that could be too skinny, too heavy, not motivated, no self-esteem. What happened? It had to be the way that child was brought up, or the household, or what happened to that child during that time. Because all children are born perfect.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And I love where you went with that, and talking about the introspective aspect of these children, and growing into teenagers and looking at themselves. And I wanted to ask you about self-love, because this is something that you mentioned as well when talking about your healing process, when you had to start that and start really appreciating yourself and healing your inner child and taking care of that child. Can we go into that and the concept of self-love and how that intersects with healing?
So for me, it all started with positive thinking, manifesting. And since I've been looking in the mirror and having the conversation with self, I manifest for peace. I manifest to have a humble life. And I write it all down all the time. I write everything down. I am strong. I am wealthy. I am fantastic. I am happy. I am wonderful. And you just keep writing it down, writing it down. And eventually your brain starts to think that, oh, yes, she told me today that she was beautiful. She is beautiful. She told me today that she's fantastic. Yes. So when I am fantastic, I'm not going to do anything that is going to hurt me, right? So that's how I started. And my husband would tell me sometimes, "So you're such a ham." And we would joke about it. I said, "Because I am wonderful." And we would laugh. And the outcome of positive thinking is amazing. And I don't engage in negative talk. There are times that I wake up in the morning and I'm not feeling it because the triggers come out all the time. And when they come out, it could be a rainy day. It could be because someone said something I didn't like. It could be because I just looked in the mirror and I'm not feeling it today. That's when I talk to self. Self, nothing really happened to cause you to be upset today. Everything is the same as it was yesterday. So what's going on here? You were happy yesterday. Today you're not. You have to address the triggers because you will always have feelings of not being good enough, especially if someone talks to you that way. An example, you go to a store and the customer service person there behind the counter was rude. Back in the day, I would be rude right back. Now, not so much. I thank you. You have a wonderful day. And that's it. I don't engage. But that's because I know that if someone is rude to me, if I engage, the gloves are off. And that's how I used to be. And I don't like that because I don't have to engage. If we have a situation, we're going to talk about it, but I'm not going to engage. I am not going to fuel up the fire. And when I started learning that, everything started to change. And I believe for me that if I like who I am, then it's okay. I am kind and I am humble and I can be funny, and someone doesn't like me that way, then it's okay.
No problem.
But most people kind of like that, and people say to me, "Oh, I can't do that. You're just so strong, and you're amazing. I'm so proud of you. I wish I could be like you." Anyone can be perfect if they want. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect because I am perfect, like I do everything perfect. It's not that. I am perfect because I like what I do. I mess up a lot. So I'm not perfect, but you know what? I'm perfect because I tried and I did the best I could. So if you do that, then you are at peace with yourself.
Absolutely beautiful. Regina, you mentioned getting rid of these emotions that are disempowering, are negative, they are not really helpful. And I would like to take that concept a little bit further, because this podcast is called Forgive and Thrive. And for me, that was a kind of roadmap, really to overcome the idea of that abuse and everything that abuse brought to me. And when I managed to forgive not just the abuser, but myself,
Yes.
I started to thrive again. And so for me, it became really a roadmap for living a better life. So I would like to ask you about forgiveness and self-forgiveness, first and foremost. And then if forgiveness at all played a role in your healing process.
Yes. So back in 2017, I traveled to Portugal and I went to the church where a lot of this abuse happened. But it was most to go there to put closure to that chapter of my life. And that Sunday that I went to that church, I decided that I was going to let my abuser go. And that abuser had absolutely no more place in my mind and my heart. And I decided that I'm not sure that I said I forgive you. What I did say was, you are gone now. I am going to move forward now without you. You do not belong in my life. And I do not want to carry the burden of you, and I'm releasing you. And I'm releasing you not for you, but for me. And the day I made that decision was the day that I said to myself, because I let that go, I must not welcome that back. So when I have a trigger, and it's not easy, and sometimes the triggers are difficult, I immediately go to my mind and I say, you have retired that burden. So you must not let that in again. Example, there was one time that I was upset with someone and they told me that I didn't know what was this or that, or I didn't do this or that. It's not relevant to the conversation now. And I almost wanted to say, oh, yes, I do. Have you forgotten that I was abused by? And I said, no, that mentality is retired. So the triggers will always come and they want to take over how you feel or how you're going to react to a conversation. But I don't allow it. And I don't mean that like, oh, I'm disciplined and I'm not going to let the trigger in. It's not like that. It's more like self. That is a trigger. I am so thankful that I recognize it. It lives here, but it's not allowed to control your life. And I am not going to engage, whether it's me feeling sad or whatever. I had a situation where a family member did not respond to my messages or didn't give me the love that I needed. And I was very upset. I really wanted to have that person be my rock and be on board with so many things in my life. This was about a year ago. So I decided that I was going to take all the beautiful memories that I had with that family member. And I imagined a beautiful, pretty box with a beautiful ribbon with a cover. And I put all my memories, all my beautiful memories inside that box. And I covered the box and I filed it. And I said, you are not going to hurt over this anymore. It's okay. They're busy. They don't need you in their lives as much as you need them. It's totally okay. You have beautiful memories. We're going to file this pretty box on the shelf. And since that day, I have not hurt over it at all. One might say, oh, those are little games you play with your mind. They work for me. They work for me.
Sometimes it's difficult for some other people to accept something like an abuse, especially in early age during childhood, that has happened, and there is a
Yes.
stigma around as well. So yeah, I always say it's their problem, not mine, if they cannot accept.
That's right.
and they cannot see beyond that. Regina, there is something that came to my mind while I was listening now to you talking, and it's one song from Kelly Clarkson who says, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Are you stronger now as a person than the person you would have been without that experience?
Okay, so not only I am stronger, that is the song that we picked for my emotional freedom celebration.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
Say that.
So when you have 7 minutes, go ahead and watch the trailer for the book. You can watch it on YouTube. It's a Shayla book trailer. You can also watch it on my website. So we start out with the beginning of the video is me sitting at the therapist's office, speaking to the therapist about what had happened. And then we show a series of events of what happened to me with the priest, and then going back in time, removing my inner child from that situation. And I run into the location where she's still trapped. And I rescue her out of there and I bring her out. When we come out, that song plays. And then we do a celebration dance of emotional freedom. So yes, that is very true. If you're a victim and you feel trapped and you feel down and you feel whatever, unattractive, unloved, unworthy, you have to start taking baby steps. The first thing you need to do is have the talk with self. Look in the mirror. And then if you're surrounded by situations or people that don't value you, you have to slowly learn how you can overcome. Still have those people in your life, but they cannot rule you, they not control you. Otherwise, you're never going to be stronger. You have to cleanse, and that's very difficult. I'm kind of lucky because all my family lives in other countries. So I don't have to handle the family like most people still live in the same neighborhood that they lived when they were abused, with the people that possibly had something to do with it. A lot of times it's their uncles or the next door neighbor. But cleansing of toxic relationships is very important. And then you'll start feeling stronger.
Absolutely.
You can't, that's right. If you hear that song and you want to be a survivor and you want to celebrate emotional freedom, then you must begin the steps that are going to make you stronger and you're going to feel amazing. And you have to put the memories of the people that you love in that little box. And you have to put that box up on the shelf. Otherwise, you can't move forward. You cannot make people love you, or you cannot make people respect you. You cannot make people stay in your life. You can only nurture yourself, nurture your inner child. And then the people that are meant to be with you, they're going to come to you and they're going to stay. It may or may not be the ones that you love so much.
I
And
love,
that's what works.
yes, absolutely. I love what you're saying, because sometimes we get attached. In the same way we get attached to emotions, we get attached to people.
That's right.
Regina, is there any final advice that you would like to give to any person that perhaps is still struggling, has been abused as a child? They are trying to navigate that experience or the memories from that experience, and they're really struggling with it and the consequences in their lives. What would you tell them? Particularly, for example, when it comes to silence, because silence is massive.
Well, the first thing that they need to do, or at least the first thing that I did that I learned from, is try to identify what makes you sad and what makes you feel a victim and what makes you feel still stuck. And then one step at a time. I didn't just got here. I've been working on this for about 3 years now. Okay. I knew there was something, and I knew I needed to do something. I started out with my positive thinking to believe in myself. And believing in myself didn't mean that I needed to be strong physically. I could go hiking, or I could go for a long walk, or I could work difficult jobs. It's not that. It's in here. You have to be strong in here. You have to believe in here. And write it all down. Find out where you can start. And don't talk to people that you don't trust, or people that are going to just put you down. Oh, come on, you on that again? You're never going to be what you think you are. You're never going to be a nurse. You're never going to be a teacher. Oh, you're never going to travel. Those are not the people that you need to talk to, because they still view you as a victim. If you need to talk to someone, you have to talk to someone that you met today, that they don't know anything about your past. Those are the people that are going to believe in you. Or if you have a therapist, you talk to a therapist. Or if you have a spouse that you trust, because a spouse that is say, oh, you're never going to do that, so why bother? That's not the spouse you want to talk to. You have to speak with someone that is going to empower you. And when you do that, one step at a time, you'll get there, but you have to take that first step to get to where you need to go, which is the emotional freedom of wearing the triumph badge proudly and retiring the victim badge. And a lot of times, like I said, it's not going to be your family.
Absolutely. I totally love what you are saying. I completely share that point of view. So thank you very much
Yes.
for stressing that out. Regina, I would like to come back on you. And I assume that now there is a lot of promotion that you will be working on for this book. Is there perhaps another book down the pipeline?
Yes. I have two other books. I have two other stories. And the other two stories are also about a woman, two different women that were abused. And my second book, it's not that she was sexually abused, it was actually her parents that forbidden her from living a gay lifestyle that she wanted to live. And her parents did not believe and did not want their only daughter to live that lifestyle. And her life was miserable to make peace with her parents. And her life did not end well because of the choices that her parents made for her. So that's going to be
Big commitment.
yes. And then after that one, I have another one of a woman that was also abused by a next door neighbor for many years as a child, a young girl. And these I already have the outlines, and I already have everything ready to start as soon as we launch Shayla. And also in these two books, how Shayla played a role in those two women's lives. So I'm looking forward to bringing forward my next story.
Fantastic. And let us know when this will,
Yes,
the other two books will be available as well.
yes.
So if our listeners would like to know more about you, your work, where can they find you?
Okay, so this is going to be our book here, Shayla, and I have a public Facebook page. That's the profile photo at Shayla on Facebook. It's a page. They can see everything that we're doing and the upcoming events. Also, my website, lafrancemedia.com, and that's spelled L-A and then France like the country, lafrancemedia.com. On my website, you can order the book. You can see everything that I've been doing, and especially the video, the book trailer video, but also on YouTube, Shayla book trailer, and Instagram, Shayla the book.
Fantastic.
Yes, on the Facebook page, they can send messages, and on the website, they definitely can contact my publicist. And from there on, they can engage in any conversation or anything like that with her. I would like to very much do speaking engagements and go and speak with people that are possibly trapped. They still wear their victim badge, and I would like to teach them what I did to retire my victim badge. And it's not easy work, but the rewards are amazing. Once you find that level of balance and humbleness to live your life, there's nothing they can compare to. I took a long time to believe, but one day I kept saying, I am wonderful. I am at peace. I am living the life that I was intended to live. And then one night, it was a divine power that came over me. I remember being asleep and feeling, oh, wow, it just arrived. It was a divine power and feeling that came over me that said, you are free. You are free to go now. Go live your life. And I took it. Definitely.
That is so beautiful. Regina, very final question. If there was one take-home message that you would love everybody to remember from this conversation, what that would be?
Pay attention to your children. Pay attention to the little boy or the little girl that said, Mommy, Daddy, I don't want to go. Please don't make me go. Or if you ask a child a question and that child doesn't respond, if they don't say anything, that's when you need to know. Not necessarily keep asking, but you need to find out what happened. Because children will tell you anything. They say whatever that they feel or they think. But if you ask your child what happened, something happened if they don't respond. So just pay close attention to the children when they come home from daycare, or if they come home from school and they're not happy and if they're not themselves, we need to know what's going on. Young teenagers, if they stop doing their homework, or if they stop wanting to sit at the table with mom and dad, or if they want to spend a lot of time in their room with their door closed, let's find out what's going on. And teenagers are difficult because they like to have their privacy and their independence, but they also love to be with their parents. So if they never want to be around the parents anymore, let's find out why, because a lot of times they could be the parents themselves. So educators and grandparents and close friends, pay attention to what's going on in the children that you love in their lives. Because if it hits home and if it's someone you know that could possibly be the problem, don't be afraid and report them because they're going to do it again and again.
Absolutely. So as we step away from this episode, let's carry the weight of the narrative that we have just heard. And it's a weight that propels us forward, urging us to break the silence, dismantle the stigma, and actively contribute to the creation of a world where no child suffers in shadows. Child abuse is a societal illness that demands not just empathy, but a relentless pursuit of change. And I want to leave you with a quote from Nelson Mandela, who said, "Our children are our greatest treasure. They are our future. Those who abuse them tear at the fabric of our society and weaken our nation." Regina, thank you so much for accepting our invitation, for sharing so much about your life story and very positive message and mission with us. I really salute you for everything that you are doing, and I wish you the best of luck with this book with Sheila. And as always, we will put the link in the description of today's episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. As we say goodbye, I invite you to check out Regina's book and to follow her on social media. You will find all the links in this episode description. If you or someone you know has experienced forms of abuse of whatever form and at whatever stage of your life, please make sure to reach out for support to local helplines, organizations that are dedicated to assisting survivors of abuse. Equally, please seek professional help if you feel that you have been affected in any way by the topic we discussed today. Join me next time when we will continue exploring inspiring and challenging situations, because remember, we are together in this journey. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to hit the notification bell and like this video. See you in the next one.